Welcome to my recap for Stranger Things Season 1. Ooh. Yes, we are here reviewing Stranger Things Season 1. So, yeah, excited to do this. Excited to break down more recaps since Dexter. Now, and yeah, so anyway, the series starts off in 1983, where we see our first kill of the show. Where we see our first kill of the show. Yeah, obviously I'll be counting the kill count. I don't do this in television, but this is Stranger Things. Of course, there's gonna be a kill count, and this is Stranger Things. Of course, there's gonna be a kill count, and of course, I am going to. So the first kill count is we see a guy just walking out of a laboratory, but then he's abducted. We can obviously say that bing, 1 on the kill count. I just don't do kill counts, but so then from that we see our main characters: Will, Mike, Dustin, and Lucas all hanging out playing some D&D. It's when the show takes place, D&D was very popular. Is it still popular now? Who knows? And that's when they're faced with the Demogorgon. But that night, as well as biking. Sorry, that was just so bad. As well as biking home, he's caught with a strange monster. He's caught with a strange monster, and we last see of Will for like most of the season. So then we see his mom, Winona Ryder, Joyce Byers, wake up her son, Jonathan Byers, and she's like, where's Will? And he's like, I don't know, I had to get to work. She's like, you had to get to work? You know what happens when you leave Will alone. So then she calls Mike's mom. I forget her name. I don't know why, it's just blanking. And she's like, Will's not here. And he's like, okay, then where is he? So then we see a random buzz-shaped girl, obviously known as 11. That's what she said when she made a buzz-shaped girl escape a laboratory. And that's when she runs into this. She steals from a guy named Benny. 11's deal is that she was in Hawkins' lab ever since she was a child. She was basically ripped from her mom at birth and basically trained to get psychic powers. Yeah, basically ripped from her mom at birth and basically trained by Dr. Brenner, who she called Papa, or Dad, to get psychic abilities. And so Mike's mom is like, Mike, you are not allowed to go outside looking for Will. That's end of discussion. But him and Dustin and Lucas are like, no, we're not going to listen to our parents, and decide to bike out looking for Will. And that's when they find 11. So Lucas is like, yeah, let's basically just show her to her mom, and then she'll find her a nice home. But then send her back to where she came from. But Mike, having some feelings for 11, vouches for her and says, hey, we should not do that yet. Yeah, their relationship voucher is over. Yeah, saying we should not do that. So meanwhile, we got Nancy Byers. We got Nancy Wheeler, the sister of Mike, who's basically dating jerk Steve. So it's basically a jerk until he becomes all of our favorite character. We love Steve. We protect Steve. Do not hurt Steve. He's the best character in the second half. So, yeah, so Nancy goes to a party with her friend Barb. If you've not seen Barb's actors before, you know that she plays Ethel in Riverdale. So she goes to a party with Barb, and Barb basically cuts herself, allowing the monster who kidnapped Will to basically take her as well. And she's like, hey, where's... And Nancy's basically like, Barb, you can leave now. Basically shunned by her best friend, and basically... And also Jonathan is taking pictures of trying to see who took Will, and he happens to see Nancy having fun at the party. Yeah, good for Will. Good for, yeah, Jonathan, you were, yeah, that is terrible of you to do, man. That is terrible. That's terrible of him to do. Of him to kidnap, basically. So Barb gets kidnapped and sadly gets killed off. R.I.P. Barb. I know why they did this, because the actress was too busy being on Riverdale to be on this show, so they had to find a way to get her back on Riverdale by killing off her Stranger Things character. Or, yeah, for now Barb's missing, and they're like, hey, where's Barb? And she's like, Barb didn't even come to school that day. So, yeah. So, Nancy and Jonathan continue to have a relationship, continue to have, a thing. Nancy likes Jonathan, but Jonathan likes Nancy, but Nancy's dating Steve, and has no idea that Jonathan likes Nancy. Just doesn't have no idea that Jonathan likes her. It's like a love triangle. Like, Nancy likes Jonathan, Jonathan likes Nancy, Nancy's dating the popular guy, but yeah, so yeah, and yeah, and we also got Chief Hopper, who's basically the guy. He's basically like when she first says, "Hey, Will's missing," and he's like, "Hey, your son probably just ran away," but that's when they find Will's body. Yeah, Will is dead. Actually, not literally, but for now, we're meant to believe he's dead. And Mike gets mad at 11, saying, 11, how could you just lead us to a dead body? So at Will's funeral, they have like a celebrating thing for Will, but that's when the bullies who bullied the gang, but since 11's there with the whole blonde wig disguise, 11 decides to humiliate the bully by basically making the bully pee himself. Yeah, I'm on Team 11. She's the best character. Yeah, best character, guys. 11 is the best character. So she's like, hey, she hears. So meanwhile, she's like, hey, the board game is Hawkins, and the upside down is the upside down, and that's where the monster Demogorgon is. So that's where Will must be. So that's when Dustin's like, hey, here's some compasses but 11 starts messing with the compasses, and then that's when Lucas freaks out, saying 11's a traitor, about how she's been using them, trying to think this, and that causes Dustin and Mike to get into a fight with 11, stops it, but again, Mike is mad at 11 for hurting that. Lucas goes off to find Will alone. A terrible idea, dude. Like, I get you're mad at your friend, but going after find your other friend alone, terrible idea. So then we also got the character of Will's dad, who basically is, Will's mom, Joyce, starts speaking through him, starts hearing his voice through light. But then she keeps telling him to run, and that's when the monster, the Demogorgon, rips through her. And that's when, so he shows up and is like, hey, Joyce, I think this whole thing is because you're a bit, insane. You just think you see Will, but Will is dead. They're having a funeral for him, and you'll have to get... But that's when she sees how she's just using him for money. She's like, get out. Get out of her house. So he, gets out. So meanwhile, Lucas decides to face them alone, but then he's like, hey, help us. But he's like, no, I'm not helping you unless you kick 11 out of the squad. Because it used to be 4 of us until then it became 3 of us, and then it became 4 of us again. So kick her out of the squad or I'm not helping you. He's like, no, then get out of my house, man. So, yeah, so meanwhile, the bully show up, and they find 11, and 11 reveals that through her psychic ability, caused her to open up the Upside Down. So it's her fault why these are. And meanwhile, the bad guys, so Hopper finds out that Will's body is a fake, because it's full of... So he's like, hey, Joyce, sorry to tell you, but I was wrong to think you were wrong. You were right this entire time. Will is still alive and is out there. So let's team up. Well, meanwhile, Nancy and Jonathan team up because Nancy's like, hey, do you think the same thing that could have taken Will, taken Barb? So they team up, but but Steve thinks that they're together, so he tries to fight Jonathan, but then he's like, hey, whoa, it's just a joke, but then Jonathan just goes start plotting him on Jonathan, on Steve, but then Steve's like, oh, JoJo references, and then they fight, but then the cops come, Steve gets away, and Steve starts feeling bad. He's like, wow, maybe I've been a jerk this entire time. So he ditches his 2 friends after they insult Nancy and Jonathan, and he becomes the good guy again, our favorite character. So he decides to help Jonathan and Nancy, and Nancy almost pulls a gun on Steve, telling him to get out. Wow, Nancy, never mess with Nancy. She pulls a gun on this guy, telling him to get out of her house. Never mess with Nancy. So, never mess with Nancy Wheeler. So then the monster Demogorgon comes out and he starts attacking them, but they're able to shoot him. So meanwhile, the bullies try to embarrass Will, but that's when 11 says, "Stinging down my man, you bitch," and totally uses her powers to break his arm, and then also basically says, "I love 11. You don't want to mess with her." So then she's like, "I'm sorry, Mike, for what? For opening the gate." So Brenner and his agent decide to invade the Wheeler house, basically saying about how Mike's in danger and how he's met up with 11. She's a dangerous weapon. So they're like, "Hey, help us get his son back." And he's like, "Hey, what the vet?" And then the boring dad character, who basically says one line, is like, "Don't worry, wife. Don't worry, Mrs. Wheeler. They're the government. They're totally gonna help us out." Okay. So Nancy's like, "Hey, I gotta help our parents," but he's like, "What if the government guys has already gotten to him?" So they try to call Mike, but then they're like, "Hey, what if this is a trap by the bad men?" And they're like, "What is Nancy doing with?" So he's like, "Hey," so they get the others and basically, so they put 11 in this bath, which basically makes her see Barb's dead body and basically sees Will, but because Will's in the Upside Down, basically see Will alive and all, and try to get him out of there. So Will So Will's mom and Will's mom and Hopper decide to go into the Upside Down and get Will back. They're able to do it. Will shoots a slug off of Will and resuscitate him, and guess what? Will's back alive. Will's alive and now can rejoin the main cast. Meanwhile, Nancy has discovered that her friend Barb was killed by the Demogorgon off screen. But it's kind of funny that Will was able. Some people say, why did Barb kill? Why did the Demogorgon kill Barb and not Will? But I can say because Will's actor didn't have any other commitments. Barb's actress did, so they had to kill her off. But the funny thing is, they said that the blood sent the Demogorgon, but Will didn't cut himself or anything. So in the first episode, so that's one of the plot holes I don't understand. Is that they say in one of the episodes that Barb cutting herself is the reason why the monster showed up and got Barb. But how did it get Will? Will didn't even cut himself or show any blood anyway, so why would it take Will? That's one of the questions we will never find out. That's the only question we will never find out in the show. So they save Will, they discover Barb's dead, and then we cut to Will in the hospital with his mom saying he's alright, and then they say about how that girl cried at his funeral. There was 11. Yeah, so the Demogorgon breaks out and it attacks all of our main characters, but that's when 11 uses her powers to basically, she's like, goodbye Mike, and basically just destroys the Demogorgon. And yeah, well, 11's fate is now unknown. Actually, no, she's alive, because why would they kill off Millie Bob Brown's character? So, yeah, why would they kill her off? And anyway, so Will wakes up and he says about Mike now wonders if Aladdin's still out there. Will coughs up a slug. Yes, Will coughs up a slug. Will coughs up a slug. And it seems like Steve and Nancy are still together. Yeah, my boy Steve is now on their dentist side. But anyway, that's it for this first. That was a really good season. It's a really good shocking moment. Brenner and the bad people were all killed by 11. Basically, 11 using their powers to basically pop their brains out and kill them and basically make their eyes blood. So yeah, 11's powers is kind of cool. You know, she was they also made her mom, who was basically led to believe, basically told people that. So 11's real name was Jane, and she basically was, as I said before, born. Basically, 11's mom found Brenner's experiments, and basically got pregnant by those, and basically they fried 11's mom's brain so she cannot be unresponsive, and she tried to fight for her child back, but twice attempts failed until they basically fried her brain and made her unresponsive. So now she makes people believe that she had a miscarriage, and hopefully in season 2 they'll explain the whole 11 thing more. Or they'll mess it up, because I know next episode's 11. Season 2, episode 7 is one of the worst. It's one of the most decisive episodes of Stranger Things fandom, and it's an 11 episode. So yeah. So for now, I'm the White Tiger, and I'm Beckham's Reviews, and I'm the White Tiger. I'm Beckham's Reviews, and this has been the first season for Stranger Things. Hopefully, season 2 can be a little bit more stranger. See you next time, guys.